Welcome to the Blue Fire Digital Network.
Welcome to the War is Everything podcast, where we share scripture, discuss the Christian metal scene and music, and help promote lesser-known bands. I'm Zachariah.
And I'm Hunter.
And we are your hosts.
All right. Welcome to another episode of the War is Everything podcast. This episode, we have Romans 5:1-5 as our scripture, and it says, "Therefore, since we have been justified through faith, we have peace with God through our Lord Jesus Christ, through whom we have gained access by faith into his grace in which we now stand. And we boast in the hope of the glory of God. Not only so, but we also glory in our sufferings, because we know that suffering produces perseverance, perseverance character, and character hope. And hope does not put us to shame, because God's love has been poured out into our hearts through the Holy Spirit who has been given to us." Well, glad to have you guys back. And again, we have a guest, so you don't get to just hear us talking about our music. So, well, welcome to the guys of Mothaltar. We have Jonathan and Aaron, aka the other Hal, for those of us in the metal community.
Oh man,
I still don't get that.
Me. That's gonna follow me.
I feel bad.
Basically, it's all right. It's just more exposure, I suppose. So there's this guy named Hal Longview, pretty cool dude, and we look pretty similar. And that's the joke. That's it.
Literally it. That is the only thing.
Yeah.
So,
I like it.
No, but currently the two only band members of Mothaltar, but you guys are still putting stuff out there.
Mm-hmm.
So
yeah,
honestly,
man.
it's impressive to see you guys just keep on pushing, because I caught you guys way back in the beginning, and I'll let you guys talk about that before Mothaltar was technically the name.
Yeah.
So, but anyway, I'll let you guys do your thing, talk about yourselves. Feel free to give some details on who you are and Mothaltar.
Well, I can start off because I actually remember when I first reached out through it to find out Aaron. It was off of your basic algorithmic, or Instagram, hashtags, and then just we talked lightly off of it. But I was in an old band in Arizona. I'm in Texas now. And my old band in Arizona was getting some pretty good notoriety. In the middle of that, I actually started losing my faith in myself. So I had to make a really hard decision. And I stepped away, and I wasn't into any metal or music for about 3 years till I moved out here. And kind of through a series of prophetic words and hearing from God and really leaning into focusing on myself, I found myself back to the metal scene. And in the middle of doing that kind of word forerunner was part of those words spoken or in prayer times or impressions people would get from the Lord. They'd submit it. Hey, take this to God, but here's what I'm feeling. And all that led to kind of Forerunner being formed. Aaron joined Forerunner, but around the same time, we were changing because a lot of the members changed. And I realized that we would still have that tenacity of what that name meant, but we had the hardest time ever with algorithms. And it's the name of the game when it comes to trying to get yourself marketed as well. There's wisdom in doing that the right way. And if you typed in Forerunner band, Forerunner music, whatever, 1,000 different bands would come up that have nothing to do with us at all. So it made it extremely hard. You want to go, Aaron?
Yeah. I joined. Oh man. Almost I can't even remember anymore. Was it June or July of 2020?
I think July.
There. Yeah, July sounds about right. And just based off of Spotify algorithm, or not Spotify, Instagram algorithms, which is pretty funny. Worked on a couple of songs, and just kind of took off. And then we made the decision to change over to Mothaltar, which it was a couple band members. There was someone, I think, Franco, you were really you loved the idea of Moth, and then Kelby, our previous guitarist, really loved the an altar aspect. We just kind of threw it together and ran with it. But yeah, it's been crazy. Since I joined, back then, Forerunner, just writing music and just keep going. I love it. I don't have too much of a background since I've only been in the game for a little over a year now. But I'm hungry. I'm ready to go to show, play shows, throw sticks at some scene kids and pay on eye or two. Like, let's do it. Let's go.
Right, the holy mosh pits.
Yes.
So tell me, where does the name mothaltar actually come from?
So kind of what Aaron had referenced. We have an old guitarist. He's still a friend of ours, Kelby. He actually lives out in the same area out in Oklahoma where Aaron lives. And, we just had this, he had that as a previous whole name as an acronym. And I'm like, man, I don't want to necessarily copy that exactly. So we were trying to rebrand. We had a lot of good songs, but there was always something wrong. The song was great. Maybe the production was a bit off. Maybe this part was good. The musicality is amazing. Other things and factors weren't working. So upon rebranding, when Kelby was in the band, in the Moth, he brought that up. I'm like, well, let me take it to the Lord. I hear what you're saying, but I want to, if this is going to be our rebranding as a band, I want to know that it's from God. And, I'm weighing that in and scriptures that he got from it. And I remember actually I was driving to a prayer meeting at my church. And when I actually pulled in, worship was in the crazy part of it, just the presence of God was heavy. And I kid you not, I promise you not. Like I remember actually I referenced the time frame because it's live streamed for the guys to look. So, I'm not lying to you or going crazy, but we have dancers. We believe in prophetic dancers at my church. And there was literally someone dancing in my mind that what looked like a moth, like with the way she was moving her hands. And I'm like, this is insane. So studying upon the moth in the Bible, anytime you talk about materialism, anytime you're going to reference what is here on earth, it says it's going to be eaten up with the moth and decay, and it's going to rot, and it's going to be food for the moth. And I'm like, man, oftentimes materialism stunts our growth as believers. And I'm like, so this is really important to us because we are literally saying that altar, ALTAR, we are laying down our materialism in front of God, saying we want you more than this right now. So that's where the name came from, is taking the kind of the epitome biblically of what decay would look like and laying that to God and saying, hey, we don't want to be just with ourselves anymore. I say this all the time with Aaron, but I don't want mothaltar to be about me. And that's harder when you're the front man and you got to do a lot of stuff on your end, but I don't want it to be about me. I want it to be about him. And that's where the name came from. Mothaltar is just kind of, we're laying down every piece of materialism. And the second caveat to that is that absolutely that name exists nowhere else. So you will never get anything wrong ever again. You type in that word and we pop up. So God bless.
See, I get that. When our old guitarist left, he was a big part of naming the band. He's the one that originally came up with it. And so we were like, maybe we've only been around a year and a half in reality. Like it's not, we could always just rebrand with a different name. But part of the deciding factor was like, but if you go on Spotify and you type in Blue F, the first thing that comes up,
Exactly. Yeah.
So like that was at least a significant part in not changing the name of the band.
Yeah. Honestly, I don't know if a lot of bands even take the time to understand the idea of branding and all that. It's a complicated thing. And honestly, half the people are just musicians wanting to get stuff out there. So they're not too keen on hours of study and thousands of videos and all the fun stuff that goes behind all of this in marketing and business. So
it's true. And it's hard because I always say that your actual musicianship is like 20%, maybe 10, that some people that we all could probably agree on or name our own are out there right now that are signed that we're like, you have absolutely no musical talent. How are you out there doing what you're doing? You know what I mean? Yeah. But sometimes that marketing is absolutely genius and that does do a lot of it. So I think it's interesting, especially being, Christians and bands. We just kind of expect people to owe us something because we're in a Christian band. And it's like, well, you should just share my music because don't you want to glorify God? But if you haven't stewarded the band according to what the Father says and according to how he stewards things, then how are you going to expect anybody else to take that same music seriously? So it's exactly. Like we do a lot about it. We do a lot and talk a lot about behind the scenes of marketing and doing it the right way, which is hard. You make mistakes, but it should always be accounted to, or you're, weighing that in as you're figuring out who's in the band, what you want to do next, all that fun stuff.
Yep. Well, I'd say whatever you're doing is working. So
a little bit.
I just checked your Spotify because I wanted to see how many like monthly listeners you're at in regards to that. And I remember thinking like a couple months ago, I was compiling a list of like quote unquote underground Christian bands and specifically like core bands. And I was limiting it to bands with under 1,000 monthly listeners. And so I had a bunch of bands, and you guys were one of them, because like it felt like for a while you guys were at like 500, 600 monthly listeners, somewhere around there. And then I looked on Spotify and I'm like, whoa, at the time you guys were like at almost 10,000, which which it's gone down to around 4,000 now, which when you release music and stuff, that's just what
it fluctuates. It's crazy. Yeah.
But obviously whatever you're doing, you're at, 16 times what we are right now.
Yeah, there's a lot to it. And I think, one part that goes to that is understanding like how much stock you should and shouldn't put into Spotify. I do want us to have an impressive resume, but at the same time, I think that musicians who take just as much time to practice and make those songs really well in your back pocket. Like I always tell my guys, we need to be ready like right now. We can't just have a really fancy EP with a bunch of streams and think that we've made it, because we haven't. And if someone knocked on our door and said, hey, you want to open the show? And we said we couldn't, a year in, that's on us, and that's our fault, because we're not ready, actively waiting, in readiness to actually go do something and have that out. But yeah, we hopped on a little indie label now. So Will and all the guys over at Affiant have really actually helped us out a lot. We're finding out he has a lot of clients in the scene. That's just obviously as far as we can say about that, but it's like they broke off and made their own label. And so I've always kind of been a nerd about marketing. That's why I've kind of pushed Forerunner and then Mothaltar so hard, but having him help out with a lot more things, I'm like, oh wow, there's a lot of things I can nerd out with the guy who I'm in contract with, and he loves the Lord, and it's kind of crazy. So
Christian businesses, not the like just buy Christian because it's Christian, but it's really nice to be able to work with brothers and sisters who are truly, sold out for Christ.
Yeah, exactly.
So Aaron, you're like, I'm only a year into the scene, but this guy, he's in Mothaltar, he's in Whom I Serve, he's played with Ben Dixon on a cover. It's like, what do you mean you're just a year in? Like,
that's
don't
true.
even
That's
use
true.
that.
That's fair. Yeah.
So
I mean,
go for it.
We'll talk about that, Aaron, because I always get nervous, and I always like hold a shield around him, because it's the age of like internet bands being big. And I'm like, bro, if you join 55 projects, I'm going to like kill them all so you can stay with us. Yeah. You know what I mean? Like,
don't worry.
You have one good drummer and it's like, it's over. Like everyone wants him. Hey, just be on this one track. And then also the next 20 tracks. And you know what I mean? And I don't want that. So yeah, man, talk to us about being a drummer.
Yeah. So it's insane. I actually owe a lot of it to Hal Longview. He's the one who taught me how to write MIDI and use MIDI drums. So like it goes back to him, of course.
That's so funny.
We are forever going to be intertwined. And like in heaven, Jesus is going to come up and go like, "Hey, Hal, Aaron, so sorry." Like, like he showed me how to do it. Because he wanted me to actually work on a cover, and I worked on it, and nothing ever came from it. I can't remember what it was. But then I met up with but then I met Jared Esposito online through Instagram, and he asked me to drum on a track for him, and I did. And then we found a vocalist to get on as well. It was just supposed to be like a one-off thing, and they were like, "Hey, let's just make this a band." And then we spent the next week of arguing about band names and logos. And I was like, "Oh, there's a lot more to this." And then just like a little bit before I joined Forerunner is when like Whom I Serve like became official. And then I joined Forerunner, and then the first song I worked on was Sojourner. That song will always have a special place in my heart, just because like it's the first one that I worked on, and like it just it encompasses a lot of what I enjoy in the scene. And then I've just kind of been not like not working too hard, but like still trying to get as much contacts and people to work with later down the line, just for fun, stuff like that. Like the Ben Dixon cover was just he just made a Facebook post like, "Hey, I'm going to do this cover next." And I DM'd him like, "Hey, that's my favorite worship song. Can I be on it too?" Like, yeah, sure.
Sick.
And so that's how it happened. And I'm just I love writing. I love writing drum parts. I'm playing them, and then getting them down to where it sounds organic and real. And I just love writing music, and so that was one of my big driving forces. But now I'm ready to play shows. I'm ready to do the little ting right before a breakdown. Wait for everyone to like just demolish each other. I'm really looking forward to that.
It's going to be holy. It's actually funny. I have one interesting story about Ben. I admire Ben a lot. I could probably say confidently right now, one of the only reasons he's not with the band is just because of moving reasons and him being out where he's at. Back with Forerunner, I'd have that stipulation of kind of being pretty close. Even now, kind of minus Isaiah, the rest of the guys are like within proximity at least 3 hours. I think Aaron 3.5. So I was having people audition return. It was already kind of like a harder song just because I like to head into the progressive route, and Aaron keeps us a little bit in that chorus. So we have kind of some unique stuff coming up. But I remember me and Ben were talking back and forth, and he's like, hey man, like, let's just hop on a Zoom call. So we did. And no joke. So it's written in a 7-string. So Return's originally written in 7-string, and like live, just watching him, like I'm watching you guys now, he transposed it to his 6-string carbon and just played probably like 70% of Return, being like, hey, I think and I'm like, this sounds sick. And it was just so amazing. Like, he's a really high caliber musician. He's a really good person. And I'm glad for people that work with him and all he's doing with, I think he just has his own stuff right now, right? Ben Estics, and he did something with Gage and with you guys and just random people, but he's a pretty cool dude.
He hasn't done anything with us.
Not yet. But I'm sure at some point we'll get Ben somewhere. But
Ben's on everyone's stuff, so
he's on the Who My Serve album too. Roped him into that, and like even Jared's on one of his things. So like it's kind of like a weird like little trilogy thing between the three of us.
Cool.
I mean, hey, it's good to have other brothers on, because it's one of the best ways we can help support each other, because someone sees a name and they're like, okay, I got to go check out this band now too. And, even if it's not exactly what they're looking for, it's at least, these bands are connected now.
Yep.
Yeah.
See, I have to hold myself back all the time because we just had Jacob Towns from DAV feature on our newest song that we just released.
Nice.
And then we have 2 other guys featuring on our EP that we're working on. That's only 5 songs. So when you have 2 features and 5 songs, and I'm like, I keep thinking like, I want to get this guy on, and this guy's like, stop.
Yeah, that's funny.
Only have so much.
I think it was on their EP too, but also the first album, The Night That God Slept, Silent Planet, had like 9 out of 10 songs for features, and they just went for it. So if Blue Fire Horizon does the same, then kudos, like why not just get whoever, and it's funny, like when people ask me to feature, I always just bring like, hey, give me, even with context, even with Jared and Who My Serve, I'm like, just give me a day to pray. If it's a yes now, it'll be yes in a day. It's not going to change anything. But you're right, like the connectedness of this next era of musicians are coming up. I've had conversations with Alexis from, I can't believe I'm going to blink the band right now, Bloodlines, then Ethan as well, Weeping Hour, obviously he's on the next track. And then I've had John from Cultist as well. And then you have Jam from A Context. Just there's people who care enough to fill that void that I would say was kind of left once For Today stopped being spirit led, as in just they stopped being a band. No one really wanted to fill that gap of actually doing God's work, and now it seems like bands are eager. Like there's a wave coming. If you're really watching the metalcore underground like Christian scene or just faith filled scene, something's coming, and I'm pretty excited about it.
Yeah.
It's just constantly all over the place. Like you said, if you're not seeing it, it's because you're not really looking. It's there, because there's bands like you guys. We got Chris Johnson over at Hard Look. You've got Jared over with you, Aaron, on Whom I Serve, and I mean everybody's just dropping music out of nowhere, and people are. I mean, the biggest thing is we're all willing to go out on the road as soon as possible. It's literally on God to just unleash us at this point. So
we're waiting ready, which is good.
There was a guy, I posted some of our music in a group on Facebook that wasn't, I'm in a ton of different metal groups on Facebook, and some Christian, some not. Yeah. This one wasn't Christian, but one of the guys listened to it and he commented on it. He's like, man, there's not enough Christian metal bands out there. Like, he's like, I never see those anymore. I'm like, because he messaged me privately, and I'm like, dude, here's a list. And I send him Spotify links to every underground Christian metalcore and deathcore band I have in my, knowledge and database, and he just lists through all of them. He's like, holy crap, dude, I didn't know all these existed. That's awesome.
Yeah. We're coming, baby. It's the truth. We're out here.
That's the thing with people asking for suggestions, and they're usually pretty open about it, where they're just like, can you send me a metal band? And I'll be like, okay, here's my list of all the ones that are currently like in the forefront of my mind. And I'll always forget, because then I'll see Aaron comment and I'm like, dang it, I forgot whom I served. Or I'll see like somebody else comment and I'm like, oh man, I forgot that band too. So it's just like, I need to put a list together that immediately links this person to like all 600 bands that I actually know.
Right. So, you're like, just pass this around so that no one, you know what I mean? Let's leave it out there.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, just get a Google Doc and send them the link.
There you go.
So looking at Prologue, you guys, so I guess take a step back for a second. So the track Sojourner, it was originally actually made as a single, correct? For Forerunner. Was it ever officially released?
Yeah. So Forerunner and Return were.
Okay.
Sojourner was the last track. No, actually Common was. So 3 of the songs on Prologue were previously released. They weren't taken too well. I did think Sojourner is actually great. I was kind of the one telling Aaron, we probably don't need it. He's like, please. I'm like, all right, let's throw it on there. Okay, I'll keep you happy. You know what I mean? But people actually really do like it. It's just enough core to I guess keep me happy, but also the audience really likes it too. And it was released on there, but that it was right. Common, Return, and Sojourner were all on. Yeah, they just had all different editing with mixing and mastering. They sound way different.
Yeah. Once we actually got them, paid someone and had it professionally produced, like it was just blown away. The
way
immediate difference. Yeah.
Yeah, we definitely had that somewhat recently. The song that's currently with our engineer, Zachariah, is telling me, oh, we got to do this with it. We got to add this. And I sent it to him and he sent it back the first demo. And he's like, wow, he made it sound exactly how I wanted it to sound. I'm like, yeah, nice. That's what paid engineering does.
Yeah.
Right.
When we sent it to him, I felt like the least confident in this song than I felt in any song that we've previously done. And I think a lot of that is that our old guitarist used to do all the recording, or not all the recording, but he was the one with the recording software and all that stuff. And he did a lot of mixing of it on his own. So like Hunter is in charge of all the recording and stuff right now. And he doesn't bother because Bobby's just going to mix it anyway. So like, why bother mixing it? But so this one just felt like it was like lacking a punch. And I think that's just different styles and how Hunter does things and how our old guitarist did things. But like, I was so unconfident in this song. And then Bobby sent us the first mix back. And I was just like, boom, that's what I wanted this song to sound like. That's what I needed. Like,
it's hard too, because a lot of guitarists in our scene, we kudos and honor to all the ones who've been in my band, because we ask them to carry a lot, not just be guitarists, but the producers and the mixers and the engineers. And that really is what you're doing. And it's that dual phase. It's true, because you think of guys who are huge, like, one of the most names I can think of now is Will Putney. And I all the music he puts out, I listen to a lot of heavy stuff that's secular too. And that probably freaks out a lot of people, but it's just, to be honest, without a lot of Christians, like, raising the bar, that's where all the good music is. You know what I mean? It's just, but it should be with us because we have the creator, but that's a whole different topic. But our old guitarist, Tim, is actually probably the best guitarist I'll ever hear. He's even with his project now. I'm helping him release on some stuff on the marketing side, because I just love the guy to death. He was great at doing everything instrumentally. Like, it sounded amazing, just not vocals. And so when what Aaron's saying, when we took it to Mo, he fixed everything up and just took it to a beyond level with more sounds. Like you're saying, when you know it's empty and there's this depth, you can't, that secret sauce that only actual like deep mixing and mastering engineers know. You're like, this is sick. It's even almost sometimes better, or you're like, wow, I can't even believe I'm that good. You know what I mean? Stuff like that, right? You're like, does that really me screaming? That's pretty good, actually. You gotta flex a little bit sometimes.
Yeah, for real. That was one thing too, is that it's tough in the summer months, spring, summer, and fall. My allergies are terrible. Like right now, just talking, I can feel all of the garbage stuck in my throat.
Oh man.
And so like we recorded this song midsummer and I'm like, my screams and stuff, it all sounds horrible and I hate it, but I can't like limit myself to recording for only 4 months out of the year because I'm not doing that. And then we got the mix back from Bobby and I'm like, my screams sound good again.
100%.
Just take a couple like Zyrtex and Claritins and just down it all at once.
I have tried literally everything I can possibly try. Like every medicine that's supposed to help, every home remedy I can find on the internet, like everything. So like I just deal with it now. I actually had to like adjust some of the techniques I use and stuff, but I make it work.
You just need to up the quantity, half a bottle.
Yeah. Exactly.
Never have an allergic reaction again in your life.
Ever, yeah.
But so talking about the song that we are today, Dichotomy, it will be released the morning of this episode releasing, which is October 8th.
Sick.
So you guys, is it a midnight release?
Yes, I think it'll be like thing where if you're like up at 11 p.m. or whatever it is, you'll listen to it on Thursday night type of deal.
Okay, so anybody staying up will hear that, and then you can come back to this episode and hear us at 6 a.m. wherever you are.
Nice.
Yeah.
But it'll be nice to finally have a song release and the podcast day up. That'll be super awesome.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you guys. Thank you very much.
Yeah, absolutely. I definitely don't mind bumping you guys up in the schedule. That's kind of what this is all about anyway. It's promotion. So no point in waiting a week if it's the day of.
Yeah, I like that.
So we're going to talk about the lyrics. I mean, whatever you guys have from it. I got to see the wonderful video that all of the fans listening to this will get to see hopefully that day. But that was awesome.
Yeah, it was our guitarist Isaiah put it together. He's kind of a nut. He's done a lot of our artwork and our content creation. He's our long distance guitarist, but him and I connected immediately because my old vocal teacher is also my favorite band ever. It's his favorite band ever. It's the Contortionist. So we just nerded out over them for. We're never going to stop till we're old men. You know what I mean? Like when you said intrinsic, like it's nuts. So
when you said Prague, you really meant Prague. You weren't kidding.
Yeah.
Yeah. So don't be surprised if I don't know that much in this song, but going forward, it'll get weird in the prog realm. And I love that a lot. I do like, I don't want to get so prog. I'm not like, Caligula's Horse and, Tesseract where it's just a bunch of groovy beats and only me singing. Like I really like heavy, just like, right in people's faces too. Like, so it's, we will keep it heavy, especially with Aaron. Like I can't, he has a built-in China, like it's just there with him.
It is. I love it, China.
Yeah. But, he did the video, but then, we were in this transition period of writing a song and, like bandmates were leaving or we were trying to figure out who do we really want to be in now because we put out like, hey, we have a single we're writing, but also, this is what we expect out of bandmates who wants to be in the band. And during that process, there was a lot of just tension going on around the world. I think in myself as well, in the church, a lot of things politically like come up, have more ever than 2021 than in the past. Yep. And it's just been, higher and higher ramifications. You can't be a believer and not hear about these things and not think about them. And if you don't think about them, I'd argue you're not really using your faith because that's what it's supposed to be about, Mm-hmm. And so as I would spend time praying in these moments of what is going on between flesh and spirit and why am I mad at the local church, but want so desperately to see revival happen in it. And in the middle of that tension is where this song came out. And, I think even that's the main part of the chorus inside of me, of the duality of my frame and soul at war. Frame is just your body and soul at war. Yet I know that heaven still calls me home. It's just kind of me saying that at the end of myself, at the end of all this arguing and, deep in my prayer and seeing keyboard warriors somehow be theologians and all this stuff, it just led me to the end place of tears. And in that place, when you have tears and all you really have left is to really meet God right where you are. Like when you exhaust all your resources of your mental, and I'm finding out a lot of people who are in the metal scene are actually very intelligent people. It's kind of that funny facade where you don't think that. It's the exact opposite. Because the lyrics aren't misunderstood, they're reading 5 times as much to make them a lot more artistic than some like, ooh, baby pop song. You know what I mean? It's like, there's a contrasting difference. And in the middle of that, I wrote those lyrics of like, man, I just want people to know, and I want God to know that at the end of myself, I still believe everything I've ever believed about him. I still believe him to be faithful, you know? And so that's where the whole song really kind of comes out of. And we were talking about features a few, Aaron. I think we went back and forth with some way bigger name features that will be down in the future, but you know, more closer ones like, hey, let's try Alexis from Bloodlines, or, you know, we can swap one with Context. But after hearing Weeping Hour, and they were on our Apple algorithms, I was like, man, there's something really piercing about Ethan's vocals that I really believe is screaming out to that side of tension. Just that word tension was a lot in his voice. It's very old school North Lane, very Invent Animate. It's that very throaty, you are feeling something. And so, you know, I FaceTimed him for like 2 hours one night, and it was just beautiful because he was the sweetest guy, you know, I've ever met in my entire life. And to see that he was so sweet and so pure about just wanting artistically to be heard, but to also know he has a deep tension in him that's like crying out for more. I'm like, man, this is my track. Would you like to be on it? Took some time to think about it. He's like, actually, I would. So a lot of those lyrics are kind of the back and forth. And you guys have said you listened to it, right? So that second verse,
Yes,
I think really encompasses it a lot, where I'm talking about, you know, turning the other cheek. You know, we're taught that, but it hurts. Turning the other cheek hurts. Offering someone else more, going another mile, giving them your jacket means you're cold. All these different things that I was going through and breaking apart. It's like, for those who it's for the people who abandoned you, the people who didn't believe in you, the people that were never there, the people who were and then failed you. God still loves those people too. God still cares about those people. And so I had to write those verses where it came from a really personal place. And, you know, I think strongholds a lot too, where in the middle of being in that dichotomy and that duality and that tension is like a lot of things that we believe we're struggling with. Principalities, it's not flesh and blood, so it's spiritual. Another aspect of spirituality is the mental. So it's like a lot of times what we struggle with is here, you know, like I could walk, one day I can text Aaron and say, get me this video. And that's all I text him. And he's like, oh my gosh, Franco hates me. And then he spends the whole day like, I'm about to leave mothaltar. Like, Franco's so rude. Like, oh my gosh. Like, you know, and it's all, he's doing it to himself, you know? So it's really interesting when you take those themes and aspects apart. And that's where, you know, I left off lyrically. I think, Aaron, you always speak great to instrumentally. So I want you to take it away with that. Cause we actually recruited Jared to help with the stems of it. Yep. And then had our producer finish it off. So you can talk about all that good stuff.
Yeah. So, it's got chill, it's got kind of heavy, it's got super heavy, it's got catchy. Next, no, I'm just joking. So this is one of my favorite songs I've ever worked on, and I'm really glad that Jared's a part of it, because he's a really good friend of mine, a really good brother. And yeah, it's just like it's so chill in the beginning, and then it just kind of keeps the chillness, and then they get to the chorus, and it just kind of amps things up a little bit. There's a little more just a little more bite, and then there's that you know, connecting between verse 1 and verse 2, and that really is a for lack of a better word, that's also kind of a pun, a prologue to the breakdown at the end that's like a minute long. I just love this song. It's so filthy, it's so dirty. Like I heard it again today, and I had to go take a shower just because of how disgusting it is.
Stop.
It's very Sleep Token. I don't know if you guys have heard of that band, but they have a song called Higher, and like the entire song is just super atmospheric and super I don't know, like it almost feels like it's weightless, and then just that breakdown hits, and then you're just crushed under the weight of, you know, just everything that the song's building up to, that entire breakdown. That's also nearly a minute long. And Jared just crushed it. Jared did all of the instrumentals except for drums and chorus. Our producer actually wrote the chorus. And then those two, what they combined together is just a beautiful song that Isaiah's got a uphill battle, because this song is a very favorite of mine.
Yeah, we're going more proggy anyway. So
yeah. This song is very much more like it's like if Common and Return had a child, basically. Or sorry, not Common. Common and Return. Those two songs have a child. It's very hooky. And I just love it all the way around, and the video too just complements everything.
Yeah, I'm not going to give anything away, but all I'll say is that the music video, it's worth the watch, and you're going to want to watch it again.
Huh.
So lots
Isaiah
of
would like that.
lots of fantastic detail. Honestly, I can't even say what it reminds me. I mean, it reminds me of a Tool music video, to be completely honest, with all the trippy mind thing kind of going on, and
Yeah, exactly.
the self-reflection kind of, I guess, artistic aspect of watching the video. So no, it fits the lyrics fantastically. I loved it. So
Yeah.
Awesome, man.
Now I feel like I'm missing out because when I listened to the song today, I was in my car, so I just clicked the thing on my phone
Yeah,
and set
and
it
then,
down next to me, just listened to it, and I
Yeah.
didn't see any of the video.
So as far as vocals go on that song, what was your part, and then what was the part given to? Is it Ethan from
Weeping Hour? Yep.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. So we because of time restraints, the number one factor right now, he's not even in his home state with his band. He's working a job way in Colorado, which is amazing because he's doing it for his band. So the dude's so pure of heart and such a hard worker. He reminds me a lot of Aaron, or each other. I wanted the song to be more vocal driven, and so I took over all the melody and doing that. And essentially, the way we were supposed to add another minute to it and have more of like a back and forth conversation between spirit and flesh, and what's interesting is we would have taken the approach of the clean vocals would have been the flesh, and then the spirit would have been crying out and screaming, because it actually makes more sense that way. But we had wrote the whole song, and I just told him, hey, here's what I'm thinking. Here's what we have. If we don't have time for you to insert your own lyrics, then you can just scream what you feel. I'm like, here's a certain part that I want you to really kind of hit home with, but here's where I want you to scream to kind of have an echo. So when I explained it to him, I said, I want you to be that voice that is really in the back of our heads when we're trying to be nice, when we're trying to be cordial, when we're trying to put our best foot forward, like someone cuts you off, you're like, oh, you're so awesome. But inside your head, you've already cussed a storm up. And I told him, I want that. I want what I'm singing. I want to be the facade in the song. I want to be the fake part. I want you to be real. That's like what you really think about, like what you really want, And so that's how that came apart. So I wrote them out and said, you can repeat these parts. And I think it will add a lot of emphasis to what part. When I wrote the lyrics, I had in mind as I was singing which parts he would be screaming. And there was we were trying to attempt to do a bit more with him melodically, because he can actually do some pretty he's got really good kind of Sam Carter type Architects yells that probably spoiler that everyone will hear in the future. Weeping Hour stuff is not too much of a giveaway at this point.
You gave it away, not me. That's all.
Yeah, right. So exactly, but it's not ruining anything. But he's just got a lot in him. So I even feel like he added a huge dynamic to the song, and it's crazy to me to think that if there wasn't time constraints, it would have been even bigger, because he was more than willing to tackle an artistic approach of what I was telling him, which is why it's really cool to even have him on the song.
Well, see, what you got to do now is a couple of years from now, go back and redo the song. How you actually originally wanted it.
Yeah, that's how you do, man. That's Between the Bear to Me does that a lot too. So
yeah, it was funny when you were talking about the how the spirit was the harsh vocals, and the flesh was the cleaner. It reminds me of Reveries of Flight by O Sleeper. That's one of my favorite songs, and I now realize why. Love that band. Now I realize why Dichotomy hits that just the level in me. It's because it's the same dynamic. So that makes sense now. Thank you.
You're welcome. Yeah.
I'm the only one that doesn't like O Sleeper.
Apparently.
How do I leave?
Probably, man. They're great. The guys in Weeping Hour love them too. So I like them a lot. Yeah.
See, I don't have anything against them, but I'm a low gutturals vocal kind of guy. And so when 99% of the O Sleeper vocals are his mids and highs, it just doesn't quite do it for me.
I get that.
You're also you're not a hardcore guy. You're definitely metalcore and beyond kind of guy. Whereas I love hardcore and I'm talking Impending Doom and I'm pretty sure even up to Abated Massive Flesh, I'm sure you would listen to, but Like
Not quite. I'm not a pig squeals kind of guy.
Okay.
So Abated Massive
Infant
Flesh-
Annihilator, something crazy.
See, that's one of those bands I just avoid because I'm like, I don't need that content in my life.
Yes, I agree.
But
I
like
agree.
I love hardcore, and I've listened to stuff
Nice.
like Periphery,
Mhm.
even Architects is one of my favorite bands.
Yes.
So like the high or like even mid-range yell / screaming thing is what I'm used to. So Oh Sleeper definitely falls into that for me.
Mhm.
But yeah, if you're looking for gutturals, it's not that band.
Yep, definitely not.
They are
Yeah,
a good
see.
band though. So
Yeah.
See, I have my my big five is what I call them, and it's Impending Doom, Memphis Mayfire, just because they're the guys that got me into
Nice.
metal.
Same here.
For today, Fit for a King,
Classic.
and Diamonds to Dust. And 4 of those 5, the lows and the gutturals are where they live.
Mhm.
So we talked about the experience of having Ethan on. Is there anything that we're going to be looking forward to, if you can even talk about it, of you on some Weeping Hour stuff, or is that not a?
So I mean, we've discussed some stuff. I'll tell you this much: if it wasn't for a time constraint, Dichotomy would have been a little bit different. Although I do love the outcome of the song now, I truly do. It would have been a full music video with Ethan down here in Texas for a couple days. So if we can't do that, there's a lot that Weeping Hour is doing before I reached out. So the plans with Weeping Hour would come maybe more in a physical sense of things in the future. And then after that, after they get done with all the stuff they have, then I think it'd be cool. Yeah, we talked about a bunch of that fun stuff, but my biggest thing when I connect with other bands is, okay, then how can we do, like, if you talk to 5 bands in the scene, you have like almost 5 different states. So if you don't think that's a mini tour, I don't know what you're doing being in a band, because that's what I think, you know what I mean? So we've had talks like that in the future and stuff, but right now they're going to be huge. I already know it, just what they have coming out and the eyes that are already on them, who they're already working with. It's nuts. So everyone, if you don't know about Weeping Hour, I promise you absolutely will. Like they're an amazing band. So I would be honored if that still happened down the road, where they'd be like, yeah, Franco, hop on this track. It depends on what for too. Some people want me to scream or sing, and just hopefully by then I'll be better too, so you can add more.
I gotta say, personally, I was super excited to hear more singing on Dichotomy from you, because I was like,
Nice.
I love, like I said, the Periphery thing. So I'm all about the I guess the contrast of both the singing and the screaming side of things.
Yeah.
So having that ambient and the vocals and all that mixed in with the heavy, that's my thing. I love that stuff.
Sick, man. Me too.
Yeah,
So,
right here.
yeah, the problem is, as far as the mini tours, especially for us, is 1, we're in Wisconsin, and 2, the second thing is we like to connect with bands that are like 8 states away, and then they're always 8 states away from the other band that we connect with.
So it's a long haul.
Yeah.
Where's the meeting point? Yeah. Where's square one? That's the hardest part.
Yeah. So with us in Wisconsin, you guys are all like Texas and Oklahoma, and you got Chris Johnson down there, and you got Relent down there.
We're like really close.
Yeah. You guys are all by each other. And then we have Diamonds to Dust. We're friends with Christian Roche, but he's in New York. So it's like,
oh, that's far.
You guys got to move close, or we got to find somewhere else to be, because this is not working.
See, I said like a year ago, my brother and his family moved to Tennessee, and I'm like, hey, let's all move to Tennessee by my brother. Let's get down there.
Yeah. Let's say
only 8 hours away.
Yeah. We are Victory is down there. So like everybody's always states away from us. So it's just about finding the in-between states. We got to find someone in like Indiana and Illinois, and we got to find someone in Alabama, Louisiana, so we can all connect like in the middle area. So
yeah. I mean, hey, Impending Doom moved down to Texas, so like, who say you guys can't either?
I think Weeping Hour is in Illinois too, so that's like,
hey,
yeah. So, and then Context is in Michigan. I think I might have gotten that wrong. I'll have to ask Kyle. I could have sworn it's what he said, which is more east, right?
I think that sounds right. If I remember the Beyond the Grave review of Context, I'm pretty sure they're from Michigan.
It depends where in Michigan, because Lake Michigan is right in between. So like if it's in the Upper Peninsula, it's not as far, but like depending on where in Michigan, we could be talking good 8-9 hours.
I know. What am I talking? You can do a whole tour in 2 weeks in Texas because it's that huge. So I have no room to talk.
That's
like
the thing.
Yeah.
You guys drive from one side of the state to the other, and it's already like from morning to nighttime. But
yeah,
for us, we drive 3 hours south and we're in Chicago. So it's
Nice.
But anyway, yeah, the whole connections thing and working that out it's interesting, especially in the midst of COVID though. So we're all dealing with that too. So I don't know how
and we're just trying to. It is harder. Out here in Texas, we're crazy. It's Texas. If you are white and Republican, you fit right in here. I'm half Native American. I grew up on a reservation. I'm half Salvadoran. I don't fit in at all. I do believe in kingdom principles though. So it's been tough with COVID. Like here, you can do whatever you want. And when I go visit other states with my wife, I'm like, what is going on? Yep. And when it comes down to masks and COVID, there's a very dividing line, which is crazy to me, but it is. And in the dividing line, you have people that will lose friendships over it and do all that stuff. And it's just kind of crazy to me. I don't know what people think. If you grow up on a reservation, you just don't trust the government. So that's as far as I can go with my own.
I don't trust the government
either. My own self and in that stuff. But with what's happening, the people I've talked to out of other states were a lot more in the preparation of, hey, how's next year, fall of 2022 looking for you? How can we plan stuff out? Because even now, architects just moved their tour next year. And that I was so mad because I am a huge, huge fan of Loathe and I could not wait to see them. And now they're not coming. And I'm like, so it sucks. So for us, we haven't played shows because first off, we want to get the right members, right, Aaron, to like sit and want to play a show. That's like a big desire of ours. So if you don't want to play, then just go. You can find 1,000 internet bands and go have fun. Go write 3 albums in 2 weeks. No one will hear them, and then do your next thing. So just take that for what it is. And outside of that, like it's just been a lot of preparation, talking to other bands. You know what I mean? And just saying, hey, let's keep it to those numbers in our back pockets. And when the time gets closer, let's just talk a little bit more, see how much more feasible things are. So that's how it's been for us. So as of right now that I'm aware of, we are aiming to start playing shows in the early spring of next year. We just got a rehearsal spot and we got a bunch of stuff moved in. Aaron's moving down in the next 2 weeks to get all his equipment in there so we can have a kit here to play. And so we're going to start jamming a lot more to be ready for a lot of stuff. So, yeah.
So I guess to move on to our topic, not that I warned you guys about this beforehand, but I had messaged Johnny beforehand, I don't know if you even got the chance to see it because I'm sure you've been busy all day. But
sorry, I have a busy schedule. I'm really sorry, guys.
No, you're fine. I had just sent you a message because yesterday I was doing laundry and I guess I was checking out, kind of creeping on everybody's profile, and I noticed that you and your wife have a podcast. So I was like, heck yeah, I'm going to listen to this. So
awesome.
I listened to the most recent episode, and I'm pretty sure it's going to fit pretty well as a discussion topic here concerning dichotomy. I mean, you guys are talking currently, for those who don't listen to the podcast, it's keep the conversation going, correct?
Yeah. Long name, but it just means talk to the people around you and actually connect, So the episode was on deconstruction, but the important part, because I don't want about to lose people just by saying that word. What?
Yeah. So hold on a moment. Deconstruction for the sake of reconstructing the faith was the entire point of the episode, which was important because I know plenty of people right now who have deconstructed only to reconstruct because of issues within the church or because of other things that have crept in that aren't important or even necessary to the Christian life. So I guess talking about that, not the episode, but talking about that in the context of the song Dichotomy. Yeah. So we're talking about the spirit, especially in like the second verse that you were talking about, where it's a back and forth between you and Ethan, and it's the screaming and it's the people who have abandoned, all that back and forth.
Yeah, man.
Talking to your guys' perspective, and I guess it's going to be different for both of you. So both of you, I guess, get a full answer on this one. What have you guys experienced that has really made you struggle in your faith or really challenged you to maintain faith despite the, I guess, doubts or just the pain that comes with working with people because we're all dirty?
Yeah.
So what have you guys experienced in that?
You want to go first, Dan?
Nah, you go first. You got this.
Okay. I was kind of being the gentleman. I know you like to smile a lot. Man, it's so, first off, if you think that a church, even the music that we're writing is indicative only to America, then you're not doing yourself any justice. God is not an American God. He's a universal God. He exists literally everywhere. And so what I'm finding is deeply rooted in what everyone's blaming the big church for is a lot of Western ideologies that have gone everywhere. My wife was in a huge prominent church in Australia for 2 years. If you know Australia, you probably already know what the church is. I don't need to say it. And she left because she's like, man, everything but God is here. There's amazing looking people. Men and women are beautiful out there. There's healthy food. There's above wages. There's beautiful housing. Everything is amazing, but there's not God. And so, to take that back into the scope of what does that mean now? How I grew up, I've always believed in something spiritual. Obviously, when I found out the Father is the truth, I had to change the paradigm in my mind. And so it happened to me at a young age of, okay, how do I grow up? I'm not worshiping the sun anymore, or, a rain dance for crops, or an autumn harvest, or, we're not having wakes anymore. I'm not on ayahuasca anymore. I'm not doing spirit walks. I'm changing ways that I grew up in living and it hurts. And it's taking apart for what the truth is. And when I was in the middle of breaking these processes apart, I realized a lot of what has infiltrated the church has been a lot of evangelical pushing in the Western hemisphere that has oftentimes sought to quickly promote people who are over ambitious and undereducated. And in the middle of doing that, it's left a giant wake. We left people for generations before who would profess the name of God, and there would be no healing or truth behind closed doors. And because of that, what we're seeing now is we think out of nowhere, like, why is everyone doing the church hurt you and the church is bad? And why is everyone talking about it? It's kind of crazy. It's in the wake of what happened and the abuse and the stuff that was hidden before. No one talked about it. So now that a voice is raising up, particularly in the generation Gen Z, I'm millennial. I think you're Gen Z, Aaron. I'm not sure. I think you're 21. Yeah. And it's like with this more digital age, which history back then, it happened, but who's going to find out on a lot of things? If we're back in like old 80s, you die in the East Coast, no one's going to know about it in the West Coast. It's just not, now you tweet and half the world knows, you know what I mean? So it's in the scope of all of that, in the church, I really found that I felt so wronged and hurt that the things that I felt God was calling me to in the metal scene and calling me to in different areas were never viewed at correctly, were never taken seriously, were never thought to be godly because they didn't fit the right agenda. They didn't fit the right makeup. It didn't look a good way. It didn't look a certain way. It wasn't charismatic enough. It didn't actually have enough weight and value to looking pretty. It had a lot of depth and rawness to it. And in the American church, depth and rawness is something that we don't want to do because that really hurts. That means that we're being honest. So in the middle of having that facade, growing up in the church, I had more trouble with racism and people not letting you in because you aren't white and you don't look a certain way. And, there's a church, the reservation will build a church in 2 years. You can just go there. And so there was a lot of different upbringings that I had to break apart in my mind to wonder, okay, God, who are you about? It's funny because even now, years later, because I've only been saved about 9 years now, years later, while writing Dichotomy and the weight of what everyone's feeling, there is so much more of an emphasis on you getting your voice heard than listening to someone else who's at your table. I'd much rather get online and scream at 25 people about how their view of the mask is wrong than talk to the 5 people around me who love me and know me and ask them, hey, how are you doing? Why is it that way? Why is that how the current scope is? And we talk about this even a lot in the metal scene. We have people who you're on a lot of chats. Thousands of chats where people like, I feel alone. I'm not fitting in. I just don't get it. And what's the church and what's going on? And they're not plugged in anywhere locally. They're not talking to anyone around them. Your ministry is not long distance. Jesus didn't go long distance. He said, come and walk with me. He said, come be where I am, And so a lot of my deconstruction has come apart from what social standards culturally have been put up in America that I believe is kind of in a weird spiritual attack on a lot of nationalism, which is a big word, which that word alone could be like 5 podcasts, because it's a lot of weight to it. But in the middle of that, I really realized that what I want mothaltar to be is that faith, that desire to please God and not worry so much about pleasing people. So in the scope of being in a band and following it, and how can I deconstruct what my calling is? My calling is to be obedient. That is my calling, is to hear, listen, and obey to who God is and go make disciples. So how can I do that? I've been doing it here with my local church, but How can I do that in mothaltar? Is my biggest concern. I want the single to come out, and I want Ethan to promote it, and I want Weeping Hour to think that I'm really cool, and I want these guys to think that I'm really cool, and hopefully Kingdom Core shouts me out. Or have I been obedient to God, and then I've done what has pleasing him, and the favor that comes after is just extra. But I've not viewed it that way. I found a lot of ways growing up in the church the way that I did. Very charismatic church, very spiritual church. My church probably freak a lot of people out and start 25 debates on 8 different groups, and that's fine with me. I'll be here in the presence, so just take that for what it's worth. And in the middle of doing all that, I definitely saw that I had to really make sure that I wanted to pursue God through the span the right way. And I had to really make sure that in the church that I was a part of, the way that I was growing up, I wasn't just pursuing a man to get approval. I think that's happened a lot. And it's even harder with music, because if you go to church and you're in a metal band, you've already been hurt. You don't have to tell me. You already know what it's like for the glancing looks of like, oh, that's kind of cute. And you're like, you don't get it. I've cried over this. I'm dedicating my whole life to this. You don't see the depth to it. You know what I mean? And so that's kind of just in a nutshell, some thoughts that I have. But what are you thinking, Aaron?
Well, before Aaron goes, just 1 second.
Yeah.
Oh, sorry. Sorry.
No, that's fine. I just wanted to say something towards what you said, Johnny. So talking about the whole connected across the nations and all that stuff, and how Jesus walked with those who were around him. Something that I've thought about for a long time is, and I've even voiced this as a question to others, like,
yeah,
if that's the way that our culture is, was that really the way that God intended it? And obviously, because it's been allowed, it's in a certain way the intention of the plan of God, to allow us to be connected in this way. But that doesn't mean that he doesn't see it as a distraction for us still. It is still a distraction to us. And I only consider, reaching out to you guys, reaching out to all the pastors that I'm connected with still, even if I'm not living near them, because Paul did the same with the churches that he visited and all that. So because I know you guys, I reach out for encouragement. I reach out to make the connection, but I'm not, obviously, Johnny or Aaron, I'm not in either of you guys' lives enough to be like, hey, well, whenever, you need me to come over to the house to do something, I'll just fly on down.
Yeah.
So, but
those two make sense, because it's still this. If you're connecting here in person, being yourself locally, then God will put people in your life that are long distance to do work, to do travel, to do ministry. My emphasis is usually on, if you think that it's only long distance, or if you think that it's only short distance, you're not in the fullness of who you can be. I'm not against social media. I think a lot of people are like, we just got to shut our phones off and get back to the roots before. I grew up indigenous. I already know what that's like. And the connectedness of social media is, we literally have a platform right now to be social missionaries. We literally have a platform to, over our social media, reach people we could have never reached, and share a song, share a snippet, share the gospel, share music. And using that, I think, is using the gospel fully realized. And I think a lot of it, though, is if you are healthy, you need people around you. That's biblical. It says, those who are in abundance of counsel, there's wisdom in that. There's wisdom in those around you. And then one of my pastors who, him and I talk back and forth so much. He's in Colorado right now, African-American man. And we had a lot of talks, because all my pastors here are white, not to be rude, they just are. I'm like, I need to talk to someone who just gets it. Not that I'm not disagreeing with them. I love them. I get their hearts, but I just need someone who knows, who's been on the other side of that minority, to help me understand, am I being dumb? Am I being too angry? Where is the lens of God through this? And I think you're right. So I think even you hosting this podcast and talking to people long distance is you fully utilizing what we have now around us. And if you still have that connectedness even close to you, it's like you two being in the same room. That's what God intended. The prayers that you two could do together right there are just 10,000 to flight. Do you know what I mean? There's power in that. And if you're not, as a believer, take the music aside, crying with your brothers, praying with them and close to you, even long distance too. I know there's that collective of For the Rock, Kingdom Core, and Pastor Rob. They have a whole Zoom, I think once or twice a month, of just people in content, just praying together. I'm like, that is powerful. That is a pastor fully realized doing his calling of being there with the sun engaged in person, but then boom, having content creators for the Lord. Okay, let's get together. Let's pray. What's going on? That I think is the gospel fully realized, which is pretty sick.
I'm feeling a little convicted. I don't know about you. Need to be, not that we don't focus on scripture. And it's all about self-reflection and all that. But we could all, one of my favorite quotes is Martin Luther's, I'm so busy that I have to spend the first 4 hours of my day in prayer, that kind of thing. So I definitely don't do nearly as much as that, but I know I should be.
Yeah.
But I know we're long distance, but after this, I'll send you guys my number. Feel free to call, text whenever.
Yeah, man. I would love that.
Sweet.
Yeah, show me a Christian that thinks that they read the Bible enough and pray enough, and I'll show you a Christian who's not a real Christian.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's so true.
Yeah.
So, Aaron, your thoughts on all of that?
Yeah. Could you do me a favor and repeat the question?
So it's just based off of the struggle, I guess, of the modern Christian in the church. Because I mean, Johnny kind of had his own perspective. Granted, it's more of an ethnic kind of thing, but even apart from that, whatever you've got, what is your thoughts on the pain and the struggle in the church coming from your side? What have you experienced in your church? Not searching, but your time growing up in the faith.
Yeah. So I actually did. I've grown up in the church. So like I've just always been around it. My home church I've been to longer than I could ever remember. And I love it. We have the right amount of, I would say, like a production for the amount of people we have.
Nice.
Like we're maybe like 100, 125, like on a good day, on a good Sunday. So we're a pretty good sized church for my suburb of Tulsa. And something I've always kind of been, once I actually really dedicated my life to Christ, was it's something that I need to work on as well, is that I'm overly critical of those who are behind the pulpit. That I will overanalyze everything you say to see if what you're saying is like actually true, or if it's just your opinion, or if you're just spouting just direct heresy. That's something I've had to deal with for the last couple of years, is that if something doesn't sound right, I don't talk to them. Instead, I would take it to other people that I would know would probably agree with me. And that's something I've been able to work on, thankfully. Like I just have a lot of problems with a lot of churches that are just mainly a personal issue. Like mega churches and churches like that are very have a lot of money flowing in, and a lot of money is like going into their worship and their sound production and their sound quality and all that kind of stuff. Like that just rubs me the wrong way. But like I have to always remember that we're supposed to, as Christians, we're supposed to still give back a lot of what we have, but use what we have to glorify God. And if you are having tens, 1,000 people are still coming to your church, and that's great, and they're hearing the gospel, that is great. And that you can't have a little rinky dinky 9-channel interface mixer soundboard in the back. And so that's something I've been dealing with, especially recently. My college ministry that I go to on Monday nights is super small. Like it's right now just me as the drummer, maybe a female vocalist, and a guy playing the acoustic guitar. Like it's small, and like for me that's just home, because that's kind of what I've grown up with ever since I started playing worship. So there's definitely that kind of sense that I need to be less critical and be, understand that these people are going to make mistakes and that they're not perfect. And I definitely hold them to a much higher standard than what I should. And so I'm definitely working on that. But that's kind of.
Does that come from the past of dealing with churches that have been, less than, I'll say less than biblical?
Yeah. I think I haven't experienced any of that personally. However, you see it on YouTube, you see it on Facebook all the time.
Yep.
And I once did go to a Christian conference where the pastor, well, not the pastor, but the guy speaking, spouted off a little bit of heresy, and that was fun. And everyone was just like, "Wait, what did he say?" The classic meme. So like I haven't really seen anything like that, but like I see it all the time. And one of the things that hit me the hardest the last the last year, I can't remember exactly when it happened, but there's a apologetics speaker that it came out that he was very much not exactly who he said he was, and he you guys probably know who I'm talking about. I won't say the name, but he turns out he was very much involved into sexual addiction and all that. Like that's lust is a huge problem. Like if there's a guy who says that he isn't tempted sexually in any way, like I'm going to be very cautious of that, because like I've never met a guy who has said that or like actually believed it or actually was. And so there's a sin problem because we're fallen people, we're broken, we're not perfect, and so I need to remember that. Just remember, no one's perfect, and that people are going to make mistakes. And just take it easy and like not actually pay attention to what they're saying and not like think about how it can apply to my life, rather than okay, when's the next heresy going to come? There it is. Write that down instead of whatever the 15 points you said before that were actually good and biblical and accurate. But yeah.
So not that I'm trying to call him out, but I'm assuming you were talking about Sai, correct?
I do not believe so. I was
that's what I was thinking of too.
I was thinking of Ravi Zacharias.
Oh, correct.
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. That's what I was thinking of.
Okay. So that one's a little bit different.
We do name drop here.
We do name drop, not for the sake of name dropping, but right. So I was thinking of somebody completely different, but I'm friends with Sai, and that situation was rough, but he submitted to church authority, which was nice. Unfortunately, as far as we understand, Ravi did not, which is much worse.
The Ravi thing was way brutal.
Yeah. That really hurt me. And like, it was just days after he passed, and just like, it just laid it on even more. But that's one of the reasons that we have to look to Jesus Christ, who was the only one who walked the earth that was actually perfect. There's one thing I heard at another like teen Christian conference years ago, and it was a lot of people say they want a faith like David's. It's like, no, David was a very broken man who killed his best friend just to sleep with his friend's wife and not feel as bad about it. Like, you can't get much more worse than that, in my opinion. That's pretty bad. Like, it's very bad. So you want a faith like Jesus, where every step of the way he goes is just overflowing. That people looked at him and saw him and interacted with him and knew exactly who he was, and that he was being exactly truthful to the gospel that he was sharing. Like, you want a faith like Jesus. You want to have that type of personality. You want to have that kind of obedience too. Like, dying on a cross. Like it. I remember when I was in Sunday school in youth group, hearing exactly about the crucifixion. Like, I thought it just kind of like nails in the hands of her. But like, no, you had to lift yourself up to the cross, just breathe, and just submitting himself to dying for our sins like that is just that's the dedication, the faith, and the love he has for us. That's what I want.
To reference what Johnny had said earlier about his wife, you said she was in Australia for 2 years. So something just came to mind, I guess, while we're talking about this, that it feels like to me, or at least the way my brain makes sense of all of it through the lens of scripture, is that all of this pain tends to, it tends to come from churches that, whether by choice or whether by years of just slowly falling away from the true faith, they end up worshiping man rather than God, where they gather these thousands of people, it just becomes a show of man. And I'm not against lights and music and anything. I'm the contemporary worship director for a church that worships about 700 to 1,000 people a weekend. So I get lights. I know, right? I use lights, so I'm not going to be saved. But so like I'm used to the internal battle of contemporary versus true faith and holding to scripture in the music and in the act of worship. So I see that in so many churches, and I'm not going to necessarily name any churches, but if you guys know me, you know the churches that I know and consider to be such an issue, at least in the modern age. But mega churches usually covers it generally. I'm not going to say every mega church. But that's just more about, if God is going to grow a church, he grows a church if they're faithful. But otherwise, it's just itching ears. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it's true. And it's a lot of that happens. Like, some of the best, most powerful encounters have been when it's 5 people in a back room. You know what I mean? And and to see that translate, it's hard, because if you were right now at the beginning of a church and it just exponentially grew in 2 years, and it's huger than you could ever imagine. And you remember what it was like in the beginning. There is that ability for you as a leader in the church, right? Because if you're going, then God's calling you to be a leader in that church. Then it's up to you also to help keep that actual culture of God in check and remaining. So how do you keep the lights in check by making it a great production? Is you still make sure that people still feel loved and valued. The moment you think you need to know everybody in your church like this, then it's going to hurt. You know what I mean? The moment you think your pastor owes you a dinner once a week to sit down and talk about just you, it's hard if your church is over 500 people alone, you know? But when you realize that and realize, okay, what are the positions that we're in? What am I allowed to do? Then you will then begin to understand I have the responsibility. I did that so much in my church. Like, why aren't these worshipers worshiping real? And then God's like, what about you? I'm like, whoa, hold on a second. You know what I mean? what can you do it? Like most of us who like metal, we're very authentic. We dress it up, but as soon as we get on stage, we're wild. And we get off stage and we stay up till 3 a.m, like still like this, because we're like, what just happened in my body? It's because you let it all out, and we saw, like Aaron said, dressed up with that same undercut haircut and Chelsea boots on stage, and you're like, nothing's happening. God's not moving right now. He moves different. He moves when it's the actual body that's in line with the Spirit, and there's something happening to your sense. Like, when the Spirit of God's in the room, you can't explain it. You're like, he's here, Mm-hmm. And so when you experience that, and you go to a mega church where it's like everyone's standing in line, like with a ticket, waiting until like worship's over in 20 minutes, and then we'll go here. Like, then you're not. And then what is it for? So you're right. And I like that you're in that space. I encourage people to stay in those spaces when they are, because you have so much ability right now to help steward the presence of God in there. You know what I mean? Through everything that you're doing. It's how dim are the lights? How can we bring him up? What needs to be heard right now? Who's singing right now? Okay, what does God want to hear? There's so much ability you have. And I think what's wrong with the modern church too is we place so much emphasis on just worship leading. We don't know that ministry is everywhere. It's in the cameras, it's in the production, it's in the people who are sitting up stage, it's in the ushers, it's every piece of it's fully functioning. So you're absolutely right on that.
I wish I wasn't. But like I said earlier, wherever you have man, you have sinners. And so that's and when I say man, you know what I mean? I don't mean men. Yeah. So yeah. Humanity.
Women. Yeah. Oh my gosh. Yeah.
Yeah.
Just kidding.
Amen and a women.
No, don't bring that back.
No.
I had just forgotten about that.
For 2021.
I hope everybody that hears me say that knows I say it very ironically and as a huge joke.
Yeah, he's having a good time.
So, yeah. So for everybody, because we don't normally do video for any of this, so it's all based on inflection. So please understand, I'm joking.
Yeah. So Aaron, that fancy background you got going there doesn't do you any good because we don't do video.
Oh, we save the video every single week though. I just don't post them.
That's okay. That's good because I just use it to cover up my extremely dirty room.
We left everying in my apartment.
Yeah, so raw. Let's just do it, man. Yeah, that's real right there.
Once you have 4 kids, you don't have the option. So,
no, thank you.
So what is on your table? I'm curious. I've been eyeing them for a minute. Is it tea? Is it
apple cider?
Milk? Yes. Okay. Yes. Oh, yeah. I thought about it, but I'm like, maybe it's too early. No, I love it.
Nope. I used the family one to make homemade applesauce this week, and we jarred it all up. So we had
that's so cool.
We had to get more for actual consumption. But anyway, yeah. So we got all this stuff for everybody who's not actually seeing this. But, yeah, I don't try to hide anything. Not with 4 kids. It's too much of a hassle. I got more important things to do.
Yeah.
Yep.
So if you guys had any other final thoughts, I don't know if you guys wanted to plug any of the other stuff that you guys are doing.
I mean, outside of mothaltar, I think that's pretty much it, man. I think if you follow mothaltar, you'll see what we're about. Aaron's got a really big future ahead of him too. Hopefully he's not going to join 47 bands, but it's really awesome.
No, I'm cool with I jokingly say that Whom I Serve is my side hoe. It's a fully internet band. Jared, you're listening, I love you, man. I made that joke in front of you. Please don't leave me. I love you.
He texts you immediately.
Yep. But like it's just purely an internet band. Like maybe down the line we'd be down to play some like a festival or something like that. But we have no intention of touring. Like Mothaltar, like let's tour. Let's go 2 weeks. Let's do this. Let's go. Let's go from coast to coast. Let's go to Hawaii. Let's go to North Korea. I thought that'd be fun. That wouldn't be terrifying whatsoever. Let's go. Like I'm still kind of wanting to. I do some covers every now and then on Instagram, but I'm still wanting to do some like professional covers with there's a huge like Christian worship metal cover scene, and that's some words I never thought I'd say in like the same sentence in that exact order. But like I'm hopefully going to be working with one pretty soon here, just for like a little one shot thing. But yeah, don't worry, Franco, you got me. I'm cool with just a band and a half of a band right now. Yeah, you're not losing me.
One thing I was thinking about too, because I mean you were in Romans, is and this is just kind of for the bands, you guys in particular as well, us, and just bands we reference and others we haven't yet, because the scene's growing kind of underground, but it is Christian. But even kind of what you're talking about in Romans, we have verse 18 where it's talking about, so then as through one transgression, there resulted condemnation to all men. Even so, through one act of righteousness, there resulted justification of life to all men. So I truly believe that if we have people who are authentic for the Lord, we have a band Intercessor. The first question he ever asked me when we met up was like, hey, when's the last time you prayed for the scene so we could pray? And I just felt so convicted, and I felt so sick, because I'm like, I can very easily make my success about me and not the people that we are trying to reach in the scene. If you were in a band and you were a believer and putting that at the forefront, that's brave, number one. Number two, because you are going to be in that space, the Lord will use you. So don't give up. Just because your band isn't making it right now, or no one's listening to your album, literally do not give up. Like the Lord will have favor over those who are professing his name. I believe that wholeheartedly. And so even thinking about that, and you just even got me in Romans now for those transgressions. It's crazy how one man could change it to make us righteous. Like if we go out and really scream, they might not understand what we're saying, but if they watch us on stage, if they see that we are literally pleading, interceding on behalf of Jesus on stage, you will have those young kids, those young men and women going up to you saying, hey, what's your band about? And you'll know what they want to talk about. They want to talk about the Father because they see you have something different. It happened multiple times with me and my old band. And I know it's going to happen because of God, just because of who he is. So my encouragement would just be, if you are a believer in a band and it's heavy music, do not give up, because most of the world doesn't understand it. There is absolutely a space for it. And just one can make someone righteous. So you being out there could absolutely spur that to someone in a year, in the next encounter, knowing God that much deeper, which to me, I think is completely all worth it. That's what makes me the absolute most excited about Mothaltar. You could ask Aaron. I'm not talking any different right now because I'm on a podcast. And when it's me and Aaron, we're talking about the depth of who God is, because that's how much he means to me. And I promise you may not think it, but our bands mean that much to him too, that we're actually doing this. He's like, wow, they're actually pursuing what I've called them to. It's astounding to me.
Well, you guys heard it here. That's the first time I've ever had a guest whip out scripture on us as well. So that was awesome.
I also want to point out that he's got like an actual
it's right
physical Bible in front of him.
Yeah, you guys saw that?
Scrolling on his phone. I like it. I like it. I mean, I have
here just in case.
I've got
you stirred me up, man.
I've got 12 physical Bibles at home. Yet when I want to look something up, I always just whip out my phone.
Man, I do it too. It was here. I'm at the desk. Yeah. But you stirred me with that scripture, man. I'm like, wow, I got a lot to think about with God now tonight.
Absolutely. Well, it was a pleasure having you guys on. So I will have all the links and everything in the show description.
Nice.
So
yes,
send me the links once you have that for Dichotomy, because obviously I won't have a link for that, but
we'll get it to you. And thank you for everyone who's listening to Dichotomy. It's a great song. Shout out Ethan and Weeping Hour. Keep your eyes on their pages. That something may or may not come closer to the winter. So just keep an eye out.
All right. Well, God bless everybody. God bless you guys as well. Thanks for being on.
God bless you too, man. Have a good night, guys.
You can help support us by heading over to anchor.fm/TWIE pod and clicking on the donate button, where you can select one of a few monthly donation rates of $1, $5, or $10. All money helps keep this podcast up and running, as well as supports lesser known Christian artists. Thank you for listening, and God bless.